Welcome to our thrifty cottage. We're going to share hints and tips about how we're trying to be more self-sufficient, and maybe we're going to help you save a little money along the way.
Today we thought we'd just sit and kind of share with you what we think self-sufficiency means today, why it's important, why it matters to us, what started us kind of back down this journey, and a little bit about our background and kind of where we come from and why it's important to us. So I'll just share. Like when I was a kid growing up, we both grew up in rural Saskatchewan on the farm. And the farm that I grew up on, we were cash poor for sure, especially when I was young. We were rich in many other ways that we didn't know at the time. But I remember as a kid milking cows by hand. I remember we had a milk cow named Blackie, and she was so smart. She knew how to get in and out of the barn on her own. And when I was young, I would go walk down to the fence, the pasture where she was, climb up on the gate, open the gate, and then jump on her back. She would walk all on her own up to the barn. She could open the door, believe it or not. She'd open the door, walk into her stanchion, and start eating, and I would slide off, put the chain around her neck, and then actually start milking her. And when we were done, I would take the chain off, hop on her back, and she would walk all the way back down to the gate with me on her back. I'd slide off and lock the gate up.
Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in Saskatchewan, and later on we also had beef cows as well. So we had dairy cows, beef cows, we had pigs, we had chickens, we had a sheep, one sheep. What was really great about growing up on a farm as a kid is I learned the respect of nature and of the animals around me. So our animals, I mean, everybody knows you get milk and meat from cows and meat from chickens and all that fun stuff. And nobody likes to have to, think about your hamburger was a living being at one time. But what I learned growing up on a farm is to respect every single animal because of what they are, right? They're a living being. So all of our animals were loved. All of our cows had names. And one of my best memories as a little kid is when we had our dairy farm and it was winter, and in front of each barn door, because it was really cold in Saskatchewan, it gets to be, sometimes it can be minus 45 in the winter. So it's really cold sometimes. And my dad had put straw bales up in front of each door to help the draft from coming in so the cows wouldn't get cold. It wouldn't get cold in the barn. And I remember it would take, for me, it seemed like it would take like 5 hours for them to milk the cows, but I'm sure it was only an hour, hour and a half because we had electric machines. But I remember, sitting on those bales and often falling asleep because it would get so warm in there. I was about 5 years old. I'd lean over and I'd fall asleep on that bale. And I remember my mom coming and saying, "Hey, we have to go in the house now. Wake up." So I'd have like that hour and a half or hour and a half nap before supper time or dinner time when they were milking the cows. So, that's a really great memory for me. I usually had a cat laying on top of me or something. Mm-hmm. And then I also one time I had a pet sheep, and his name was Poco. And we got him as a lamb. He had been an orphan lamb from the neighbor, and Dad brought him home, and I bottle fed him. He was the best little sheep forever. He was my little best buddy. And then as we got older, he grew, of course. And one day our little friendship ended because I was outside playing, and Poco by this time was a full-grown sheep. And I think he realized his hormones, or if he just realized he was heavier and bigger than me. He was a ram, yeah. And we had a cattle ramp stuff, and Dad had it propped up beside the barn. And I was outside playing with Poco one day, but he was playing a little too rough, and he actually trapped me on that ramp, and I couldn't get off because he was like going every direction trying to make me stay on that ramp. Poco, our relationship ended really quickly. It wasn't a good one, but those are the great memories and stuff we have as kids on the farm, because we grew up having to care for things other than ourselves and worry about things other than ourselves, right? We had to worry about how animals were treated and about sick animals. Mm-hmm. And, we both had large gardens as kids growing up. So food was definitely produced at home. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't buy, it wasn't very often you bought store-bought cookies or even store-bought bread. So, as we moved away from the farm, we moved away from those really great traditions and those really great natural things that we had grown up with, and our grandparents and great-grandparents had grown up with as well. So being out here on our little farm, it gives us a chance to actually take back some of those traditions and start digging into things that maybe we had forgotten or things that we had lost as we grew up as adults. And I think it's a really great time for us now because we can actually enjoy, taking time to be with our animals, to, you know, make homemade breads, to make our own meats and cheeses and stuff like that.
Global pandemic, right, of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I remember when it first kind of all really came and started happening here in Canada. That was back in March of 2020, I guess it would have been
Yeah, it would have
roughly.
been 2020.
And
Yeah.
that was when the panic buying of, toilet paper, and there was
Oh,
no meat.
water and yeah, meat,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get butter, all those things, right? They
Yeah.
became difficult to purchase.
And I remember Vanessa and I sitting there looking at each other, go, we're good. Like, we
Yeah.
had enough stuff. We didn't have to go to the store. Vanessa mentioned store-bought. That was a common phrase for farm kids. Oh, they have
Yeah.
store-bought stuff. We didn't have a lot of store-bought stuff. We grew up with pretty much as possible. We made it ourselves because we didn't have the cash to buy it necessarily. So you made it, right? And I think that when the pandemic first kind of hit and all this really started happening, it helped shore up, for me anyway, how important it was to be able to do things yourself and to be able to take care of yourself, take care of your family, not to be reliant totally on a fragile supply chain. From this, we buy store-bought stuff. We make a lot of our own stuff, but we buy things. But we buy them, I think, maybe with more of a farmer mentality, or a self-sufficient mentality. Self-sufficiency is such a hot topic today that I wanted to talk about that a little bit too, what I think is the myth of self-sufficiency. But when things are on sale, we buy we buy pretty good quantity of stuff. There's only two of us. We have a pretty decent sized chest deep freeze that can't take any
It's
more stuff. It's
pretty
full.
full of stuff, yeah.
And we were chatting before we started filming, and I said, why is that important? Why does that feel good when you open the lid on that freezer and it's full? Why does it feel good when you go in the pantry and there's shelves of preserves and pickles and jams and jellies? And why does it feel good to make your own cheese or to make your own cured meats and things like that? Why does it feel good to collect your own eggs? What is that about? And I think that, for me anyway, I was a big 4-H kid when we were kids growing up. I was in 4-H from the time I was 10 to the time I was 18. And the motto of 4-H, if you don't know, is learn to do by doing. And that was how I was taught how to do everything. I mean, when I don't know if I should tell the story. I think I was about 10, Mom or Dad, if you watch this. I was about 10 years old, and the pickup truck was in the field not that far away. And Dad said, go get the pickup and drive it back to the house. I had never done that before. Now, he knew what he was doing. There was no gates to go through, and all I had to do is go to the truck and drive a straight line basically to the yard. He did not come with me. He'd shown me how to drive. I'd driven the tractor a little bit before, so this wasn't like completely new territory, but I was young, and he just said, go do it. And I did it. And I think that that's such an important philosophy for us today and our children today, that it's okay to try things and fail at them and wreck things and break things and have them not work, because that's how you learn, And that's a huge part of kind of where I think we come from the do-it-yourself sort of aspect. I don't know if that makes any
That
sense
does
to
make
you.
sense. But I mean, you don't have to be a farm kid in order to be able to have a self-sufficient lifestyle. Even if you live in an apartment building, even just learning or, trying different things with doing your own baking, right? You can make your own cheese in your apartment. That's totally cool. You can make your own dried meats in your apartment.
Make your own sauerkraut.
Make your own sauerkraut. I mean, you can still buy vegetables and fruits and bulk items on sale and figure out how to make really neat, different things with them that is going to sustain you and your family. You can still do all that stuff. I think that's really important. Part of being self-sufficient is learning how to maybe save a few bucks along the road too, which is really important because, Tony was talking about the pandemic and such. You don't know. I mean, some people couldn't go to work, right? So having that extra money maybe, set aside, or having that extra, like buying in bulk just in case something happens, that's always a good plan too, right? So I mean, you don't have to be financially wealthy, but you sure can be wealthy in other ways, meaning becoming more self-sufficient with being able to supply your own food, do your own baking maybe, and if you make your own food, you actually know what's in it as well. And I tell you, our boys appreciate it. And maybe at the time when we were younger and we weren't buying all that, store-bought cookies and stuff either, they weren't appreciating it, but they sure do now in their 20s and 30s, being able to come home and, mom's got some cookies there or muffins or whatever it is. They enjoy that home-cooked meal. And it's not hard things to learn how to do, but skills you're going to take with you, and you're probably going to pass on to your kids too. So I think that's just a really important thing, is to have that tradition and that heritage that goes with becoming more sustainable in your own life.
Yeah, it's and that leads into kind of the self-sufficiency topic. You see a lot of that, and when people hear the word self-sufficiency, they think a couple of things. One of the things I think of is like a doomsday prepper, someone that's got a lot of guns and ammunition and is ready for the zombie apocalypse, and has a whole garage full of freeze-dried food. And that's okay. Listen, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not, to me, that's not how we see self-sufficiency. And I think that true self-sufficiency for Western Europeans and North Americans is a complete myth. We rely on electricity. We rely on running water. We rely on that water to be treated. Now, we don't. We have a well, and there's other things, but the majority of people rely on a whole bunch of infrastructure that's in place, like a doctor, a dentist, a pharmacist to be able to go buy antibiotics from, so the true self-sufficiency, being able to rely on yourself completely, I think is a myth today for most North Americans.
Well, thank goodness we have doctors, and thank goodness we have dentists, and thank goodness we have pharmacies we can go to when we're sick. That's important, and that's why we've evolved so much further than what within the last 200 years and what it would have been before that, because we have those extra, with that knowledge, but that extra care that we can get now, right?
Absolutely.
So that's awesome.
I agree.
We believe in all that stuff.
I do, 100%.
Yes.
I believe in that infrastructure. But being able to not rely on external things for real necessities, food, water, shelter, being able to stay warm, right? Those kinds of things. Now, we have electricity in our house, so we're always going to have electricity. I love hot water. I love showering in hot water. That I don't want to ever lose that. That's important. But, we have a wood stove. That was important to us to get that installed, right?
That was one of those top things we had on our list.
Because then we live in a forest, and so we do have the ability to go get wood. If something happens to the global or to our power grid here, we have the ability to heat our home and keep ourselves safe and secure. We have, we keep gas on hand to run a little generator. Again, this isn't doomsday prepper stuff, but we have the ability to be able to go probably well over a month easy on food. Probably a good week without electricity. We have water on hand. We're on a well, so if we don't have power, we don't have water. But we keep drinking water on hand. We're putting in a water catchment system to catch the bountiful rains of our winter here, so that we have water for our livestock and our gardens and everything else. So those are little things, and they aren't done overnight. They aren't done all at once. They're done over time. And I think that's more for us. It's that peace of mind knowing that if the poop hits the fan, we're okay. We're okay.
Under control. We got it under
We're
control.
going to be fine, right?
Now, we do other things too that, not just necessarily food related and such like that. I mean, of course, we're going to put in fruit trees and all that fun stuff. But I mean, we do things like, we'll look for furniture, right, on the various market sites, free,
the side of the road,
free or cheap furniture that, has really great bones that maybe we'll repurpose and turn into something else, or just make it a grander version of what it currently is, and things like that. I mean, we can sell them, we can use them in our home. And there was a furniture shortage apparently here with the pandemic as well, so people were having a hard time finding sofas and beds. which I never thought that would happen, but apparently that happened as well. So just thinking of different ways you can repurpose things, maybe find things for free. I mean, let's say you need a coffee table, you're like, oh, you know, I could go buy one, but what if I could find one for free and paint it? Or, but, you know, what if I could make one out of pallets or whatever it is, right? Just learning how to do things a little more efficiently yourself. Plus, you're creating a great art piece. We do a lot of thrift shopping. So, and I love the treasure hunting of it, because we found some really spectacular pieces of pottery, great pieces of furniture, great decor. We found, you know, just so many different things you can find cheaper than what your traditional store might have. So just things like that to keep more money in your pocket and less going out. So those are kind of things that we practice and we like to be very conscious of.
A lot of our new infrastructure that we're putting in here, chicken coops and duck coops and garden beds, a ton of it is free. I mean, free cash, expensive time. That's the trade-off. You
And then
know,
we still have to pick it up. So there is
yeah, you still got to go get it and everything else.
It's a fraction of
Absolutely.
what buying those, you know, that wood or the cinder blocks or the paving stones or even plants. A lot of people are giving away free perennials and stuff like that. Just keep your eyes open for stuff like that. I mean, if you can get them for free rather than paying $10 or $15 for it, why wouldn't you? It's the same plant.
And
or we trade things, you know? We trade fresh preserves, we trade our duck eggs, we trade different things for something somebody else might have. The barter system, it's a great way to work, right? So even if you don't have a farm, you can still do that with maybe things that you make. Maybe you make soap, maybe you crochet, whatever it is, right? So just kind of keep those things in your mind. Those are the kind of things that we work with in order to have the most amazing lifestyle that we love so much.
And when we say farm, we have 2.5 acres here. Now, that's very misleading, because then you'll think, oh, I don't have a farm, I don't have a couple acres, I don't have an acre, I don't even have a big yard. Well, I'll flip the camera around and show you where we grow all of the food that we consume and what is basically our living space in this yard. It is no bigger than a big city yard. Most of our property is forest and rock and bedrock. Now, we're going to transform that, and you're going to get to see that if you come along with us. 96, I think. And then we have 8 15-gallon pots or 10 15-gallon pots
that we grow tomatoes or
potatoes in. So we have like less than 150 square feet of garden on 2.5 acres. That's all we have. We have flower beds and things like that, and we're like, there's big plants coming down the pipe, but we produce not even close to all of our own food, but we produce a lot of our own food. And then if you pay attention to the gardening groups in your local place, in your local area, the social media in your local area, every year people have too much of produce. Whether it's fruit from their trees, they can't pick all their apples or their plums or quince.
Or pumpkins.
Pumpkins. We love pumpkin. We freeze pumpkin. We eat pumpkin all year long. And we don't ever buy a pumpkin, nor do we ever plant a pumpkin. We simply, every year at Halloween, after Halloween, we make a post on Facebook and the groups saying, hey, do you have intact, unpainted pumpkins on your step that you want to get rid of? And we always end up with more pumpkin than we can use for free. Point being, try to do things for yourself as much as you can, but try to develop the skill set so that should you choose to do some of those things yourself, you have the skills to do them. Maybe they're not perfect, right?
So, guys, please check out our website, www.ourthriftycottage.com, because I share a bunch of recipes, a bunch of videos, a bunch of great information on there about different things that we're doing, you know, whether it's repurposing or whatever. And please maybe share and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we love sharing with you guys, because, you know, we've been there and we've done that. And if we can help anyone maybe have a life that's a little more full, but also save you some money in the process, that is our whole goal with this.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for watching. Boop the bell, ring the bell.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
Yeah, and